Behind me are the Neumann KH120 Mark II studio monitors, and I think they just might be about the most underrated studio monitor I've ever heard. They sound way bigger than they are. They are shockingly detailed sounding. They have maybe the most advanced room correction software built in that I've ever used, and not by a small amount, by a pretty extreme amount. They are small enough to fit in the smallest of home studios. They have incredible low-end extension for their size, and they only cost $1,900 for the pair. I don't know how these have flown under my radar for so long, but I'm extremely impressed, and today I'm going to tell you everything I can about the Neumann KH120s. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you so much for stopping by for another video. Now, I have had these up in my room here in Studio B for almost 8 months. I reached out to Josh, who many of you have seen on the channel before, and I said, hey, I'm interested in trying some Neumann speakers here in Studio B. Which ones do you suggest? And he was like, definitely the 120s. It's the perfect speaker for this size of a room. And so he brought over his demo pair, and I used them for maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months. I've mixed on them, I've edited on them, I've mixed every single video, the audio for every single video on them since the day that they showed up, and I was just extremely impressed. But then I got a pair in to unbox and actually set up and use from scratch to experience it like you guys would experience it, and run the measurement software, the calibration software, and this is where my mind was blown. I'm just being honest. So a good portion of this video is going to be about the calibration software, because it is so in-depth, it's so accurate, it makes such an insane difference, far more than any other calibration from any other speaker I've ever used. And it's because they're not just trying to EQ around what your room sounds like. They're using phase, time, and EQ to calibrate your room in a way that I'm not convinced anyone else is doing it like this. Okay, let's get into some specs and then what they actually sound like, and then I'm gonna walk you through and show you how the calibration of everything works. Now, the frequency response of these speakers are 44 hertz to 21 kilohertz. They go up to 116.8 dB. They have a 5¼ inch low frequency driver and a 1 inch tweeter. They are 245 watts. They are 11.3 inches high, 7.1 inches wide, and 9 inches deep, and they weigh only 11.9 pounds each. I think it's because of their smaller size that I have overlooked these in the past. And to be fair, the room correction stuff I think is fairly new, and it's only available on the Mark II version of the KH120s. Okay, before I get on to what they actually sound like, I will of course put links in the description down below to go check these out and a whole bunch of other Neumann speakers. Like always, those links go to Sweetwater, so huge thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. And anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear whatsoever, you can click on any video of mine, click on any link in the description of any video. Once you're on the site, you can purchase absolutely anything. It costs you nothing extra, but it goes a huge long ways to help me keep making videos, review videos just like this. It's one of the main reasons that companies like Neumann and Sweetwater are willing to send me stuff like this to test out so I can make videos on it and give the most honest, detailed review to you guys that I possibly can. So thank you so much for using those links. Anytime you need to purchase anything, thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. What do the Neumann KH120s sound like? Well, they are shockingly big sounding. They sound bigger than a lot of other studio monitors that are actually a lot bigger. The low end detail and the low end frequency response is, I'm gonna say, shocking. Now, they are up against a wall, so there's a boundary effect going on here, helping increase the low end and what the low end feels like. But when you look at a 5-inch studio monitor like this, I would not ever think that it had enough low end for me. But the low end is great. It's very accurate sounding, especially after the room control, the room calibration. It made a shocking difference. And again, I'm gonna show you all that here shortly. The mid-range on these feels very, very honest. I'm gonna say brutally honest. I don't feel like they're a flattering sounding speaker. I've said this before, but there's like a spectrum of speakers. There's like flattering to brutally honest and analytical. And these are definitely on the honest analytical side. Now, personally, I find those kind of speakers enjoyable to listen to. The mid-range feels pretty close. It's not an overly three-dimensional feeling mid-range. The mid-range honestly reminds me a little bit of NS10s. Now, not in the harshness part of it, not in the 2.5K bump that NS10s have, but how NS10s are so accurate in the time domain. That was the reason why they were famous. These feel like that, like they are incredibly accurate in the time domain. So this means transient responses, detailing like compression settings on kick and snare drums, super easy. Reverb tails, dialing in low level information and compression settings is very easy on these speakers. They are not an overly smooth sounding monitor, but they're also not at all harsh sounding to me personally. They sound, I mean, kind of just about right. And because of what I assume is their accuracy in the mid-range, it makes them a really good monitor for rock and metal, or any sort of organic music, anything with real drums, real guitars. I find that a lot of speakers work really well for electronic music. There's a lot of different speakers that have a wide enough frequency response and a strong enough mid-range and solid enough low end that they work good for pop or EDM or a lot of stuff like that. But when it comes to rock and metal and country, folk, any sort of like actual organic music with real instruments, real drums, real guitars, not every speaker excels at that. These really excel at that. And it's not at the cost of how good they are at pop and electronic music. They're just, because of that mid-range, because of their speed and accuracy, they really excel at organic music, in my opinion. Certainly the best sounding monitor for that kind of stuff I've ever heard at this size, and absolutely the best sounding monitor I've ever heard for that stuff at this price point. And like I keep saying, especially after we ran the room correction, it's not by a small amount. I'm really honestly blown away by these. Okay, let me show you what it's like to set the room calibration up and all the steps that we go through and how in-depth it actually is. And then I will give you my final thoughts and my recommendations for who these monitors are for.
Launched MA1, our speakers show up once we have connected to a switch. Click blink LED, it shows us which one switch. So in this case, it's the right channel is number 2. We're gonna set the input connection automatic. We're gonna play a test tone. Gives us that little nylon guitar ditty. Confirms our output routing is correct. Left speaker, do the same thing here. It's gonna be 1. Hey. We're cooking with grease. Continue. We're gonna name this, we'll just name it V1. This is telling us essentially just to kill any direct monitoring function our interface may have that feeds in output. We type in the serial number of the microphone. Then we set our targeted output signal level. It's going to look at the internal level of the system, and it's just going to make sure that the signal doesn't have any like too much noise, too much room noise, too much ambient noise. Tape measure on hand. Always keep the tape measure. It's going to ask us to type in the distance between the speakers and the microphone for an equilateral triangle. In this case, it's 39 inches. If you want to go metric, you can type in centimeters. We're going to start a measurement. You can specify the amount of time we need. So if you're measuring and you're next to the mic like this, you need to give yourself a couple seconds to get away from the microphone, or your body will physically impact the microphone measurement. So we're going to do 3 seconds between each measurement. Okay. We're going to hit continue. So now, based on the distance, it's going to tell us to move the microphone 9.84 inches away. 9.84 times 2 is 19.68, right?
That's pretty quick math, buddy.
Wow. Set it approximately like that and just keep it square to the floor. And we'll just move it to the left, that exact amount. If you want to be really detailed, get gaff tape.
Yeah.
Build a perfect square. Going to tell us to do the same thing on the other side, but always from center. The measurement is always from center.
Got it. So you started from center, and then it told you to move it to one side and then to the other.
Correct.
Got it.
Put our microphone back where it was in the center, and then move the mic 7.87 inches forward. 9.84 inches back. Now it's going to tell us to go up 3.94 inches. We'll just increase the height here. 3.94 inches below. And it always does the same height.
All measurements done.
Now what it's going to do is do a bunch of math. It's going to figure out what your room's doing and how to most accurately correct that without pushing information to a node, right? So it knows what's a mode and it knows what's not a mode. But we'll see what your room is doing here in a moment. So your dotted line is the room at the moment. So you see there's like a big buildup, 6 dB at 400, got some upper mid-range loss, right?
Yep.
All the stuff, and then the solid line is the corrected curve.
Is what it's done to it.
Yeah, is the corrected curve.
So we've increased response at 50 hertz. We've gotten rid of, or really handled something at like 110, 120, or that whole like 80 to 110, 120. And then that giant bump up there at 180. Very interesting.
And then also this guy, right? So,
oh yeah.
Got a big hole up here.
Yep.
But you'll notice it also, like the top end response, really doesn't touch anything in the high frequencies, just because that's the easiest stuff to manage acoustically. Right. So let's just, if we wanted to, we could listen to a bunch of stuff, and then you can audition and engage and disengage it, so you can hear the difference.
Oh, cool.
In this case, we'll just save it as V1. So it'll show up here. But if we wanted to go back and say we want to, you like it because it's got more, you want something that's got a little more low end or a little more mid-range forwardness, right? That's personal to you. That's not necessarily a neutral thing, but it's something you like or you dislike or you're used to. You can go back into the setup and you can save that as a new setting. So you've got a bunch of filters here. So if we,
that's cool.
So if we wanted to bump, let's say 100 hertz, a couple more dB, just say 2, and then we can hit realign. What it'll do is realign the system.
Without running a new sweep.
Without running new sweeps.
Okay.
Right? And it actually just doesn't, it actually revamps the algorithm from bottom up, because it doesn't want to just apply another filter over something where there is correction, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't want to be destructive. It only wants to be constructive.
That's very cool.
So as you can see now, our curve is, we got a little more lift on this bottom end.
Yep.
We can save this as V2, and we'll just like put in parentheses plus 2 dB at, what did we say, 100 hertz? Right? Save it. And if we just want to jump in between those presets now, we can.
That is really cool.
And you can make as many of those as you like, as much as you have hard drive space for.
Much as you have hard drive space for, and then you also will need to keep all your Ethernet stuff hooked up in order to make those switches happen.
Correct, yeah. And it's just a super simple switch. Here we have like a little $15 Amazon switch somewhere on the floor.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
And, you know, you can leave that connected if you want, but if you don't want to leave it connected and you just like say V1, once you back out of this window, it's going to revert to whatever's here. So you can unplug everything and it will input that correction curve into the speaker. So you don't, they can just be dumb analog speakers as far as you're concerned from that point forward. Yeah.
That feels, I'm not just saying this because you're here, that feels really in depth for the price point.
Yeah, it's I can't go super deep into how it does what it does, but it's unique into its own, and if you were to try to find something that sort of helped you with that sort of correction, you're going to have to spend well over 2x the price of what the speakers are themselves to do it.
Microphones not included with the speakers.
Correct. The microphone is a separate thing.
Okay.
Because if you just want to use the speakers analog, you can.
Yep.
They are designed not to be corrected. They're designed to be the best performing acoustic speaker we can have at the price point, right?
Yep.
This is just mitigating the interaction between the room and the speaker as much as we can. So without any of that, they're still great. You put them in a room that's a good room, they're going to sound
Well, I've had them in here for 6 months or something now without that, and they've been awesome. I'm really curious to work on them now and hear the difference.
Yeah. I think you'll be surprised.
And so you just buy the microphone, and then you get access to all that. Well, that's about the most no-brainer add-on. Now that was a real reaction. When I first heard these with the calibration turned on, after listening to them for months in this room, I literally giggled because It's insane. Like, it's really a shocking difference. I can't overstate it. I really can't. The difference that the calibration makes is so superior to any other calibration that I've used that's just running EQ to try to correct stuff. It's so much more in depth than that. It changes, it like fixes everything in such a way. It's really hard to put into words. Okay, so who are these monitors actually for? They are for anyone in a smaller room. I think the monitoring sweet spot is somewhere between like 3 and 5 feet listening distance. It's not what they told me, that's just what it feels like to me. Like I said, I think they excel at organic music. They are completely fine for any sort of pop or electronic music. It's not that they're not good at that. It's just they excel at the organic, real instruments music more than a lot of other speakers that I've heard do. I think anyone who has a budget of $2,000-ish, I'm not sure I can think of another pair of monitors that I would even come close to recommending over these. Now, I do have to say that the microphone is an additional cost. I believe it is $299 for the microphone. When you buy the microphone, it gives you access to the entire calibration thing. So it is an added cost. But if you're gonna buy these, you gotta do this. This is like such a shockingly important part of it. You have to do this. I mean, you don't have to, but you really, really should. So anyone in a smaller room, anyone who works on organic music for sure, anyone whose budget is in the $2,000 ballpark, but also I think these would make an incredible B set of monitors. And I'm really kind of considering putting them in Studio A as a B set of monitors because they just offer such an honest, different perspective than any other speaker that I've had in here, and completely different perspective and maybe more honest than my speakers that I have in Studio A. Completely different philosophies, obviously. Giant mains versus little near fields. Completely different. But being able to flip back and forth between those two different perspectives, I think would be incredibly valuable. So that's who these speakers are for, in my opinion. Now, they are powered speakers. They do have EQ on the back of them and a handful of other switches on the back of them. And they are small enough to fit in between larger speakers to really kind of tuck up against them and still be in the sweet spot. And they are definitely small enough to fit on a small desk like this with plenty of room to spare. Overall, honestly, I cannot recommend these enough. The Neumann KH120s have shocked me, and I'm extremely pumped that I've been able to spend this time with them. Don't forget links in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.